Okay, welcome back to the Village Loafer. We're going to do phase 2 now. I've mixed the dough, I've developed the gluten, and now I'm going to put it in the proofing baskets. These are proofing baskets right here. They're made out of rattan, and they come with this cloth liner, and then you just put some flour in there and rub it with your hand like this, and you rub it into this cloth liner, right? So you're going to get that covered with flour. So I'm going to show you now how I get the dough into the basket to let it proof. Proofing means it's going to raise up before you put it in the oven, right? And then this is why you want to develop the gluten, because when I go to take this out of the basket and I turn this basket upside down and I put the dough out here, I don't want it to just run out and go flat, right? So you got to develop the gluten, right? So I got a little more than 2,000 grams in here, so I'm going to make 4 loaves, 550 grams. So let me carve out some dough here. That's 580, that's a little too much. That's close enough. Now see, when you mix the dough, you should be able to touch the dough without it sticking to your fingers. Usually, when you do the recipe and you mix it, it's going to come out like this. It's going to be just right. It's a little bit tacky, but it doesn't stick to your fingers. And sometimes you're going to mix it and get to where you think it's done, but when you touch it, it's going to be wet, still stick to your fingers. So then you're going to let it keep mixing, but you're only going to put in about a tablespoon of flour at a time. As you get experience with bread, you're going to see that even 1 ounce of water or 1 tablespoon of flour really going to affect the dough, right? So you don't want to put in a half a cup or anything like that. You want to go teaspoon at a time until it gets like this where you can touch it without it sticking to your fingers, right? So we're going to put this out here. Now what you want to do is you're going to push it out flat like this, right? And push it out flat. Now there's another thing I got to tell you about this. Today my dough is brown. Your dough is going to come out white when you follow my recipe. Today this dough looks brown because I added some malt flour to this dough. And I haven't done that before. It's an experiment for today. And the way you know you got your gluten developed, you should be able to stretch this dough out like this. See how much I can stretch it and it's not tearing? That's the gluten, and that's what you need. Your dough has to be able to stretch out like this without tearing, right? And so after you've mixed it and you're getting ready to put it in the basket, I pull it all out like this and keep folding it back into the center. See how much I can stretch this dough? And it doesn't tear. You don't want it to tear. The elasticity in here is the gluten, and that's what you need so that when you tip the dough out of the basket, it's not going to go flat like a cow poop. It's going to hold the shape, which is what you want. You can see I just keep folding it in, stretch it out, fold it in, and then you turn it over. And then you're going to go like this. So what I'm doing, I'm pressing down and I'm curling my hands under the dough to push it back together. So that's what I'm doing here. Now it's just a little tacky right there. So we're going to put just a little bit of flour, just so it's not sticking to my hand. Just a little bit, that's all you need. And push down and turn, push down and turn. And what you're doing, you're stretching the gluten. You're putting like a skin on the outside of this dough ball, so that when this starts proofing and the bacteria is eating the rest of the sugar and the starch that's in the flour, and also eating the sugars from the honey, it's going to start expanding. It's called proofing. And when it proofs, what I'm doing now puts a skin on the outside. Think of it like the outside of the balloon. When you blow the air in the balloon, it's the skin that makes the balloon take the shape. You're doing the same thing right here by making a skin on the outside of the bread. So when I turn it, if you watch, when I let go, you're going to see the elasticity. Turn it back. Watch. See how it turns back by itself? That's from the gluten. Then you turn it over and just pinch that back together where you've been spinning it. A little more flour. You don't need a lot, just enough to coat it. And then once I get to this point, then you're going to just gently roll it out into the batard shape, which is the French word for this shape basket. The round baskets are called boules, B-O-U-L-E. So that's all I want right there. That's what I want. Then I'm going to put that in this basket. Then you're going to put just a little bit of flour on top, just a little bit. Just like that, right? And then what I do is I steal my wife's shower caps. Not really, we bought these only for the bread. So after I get to this point, then I put a shower cap on here because I don't want the air to dry it out. So just put a shower cap on there like that, and then I set it aside. I'm going to do one more, and that's all. I don't want to make the video too long, but this is how you get it from the bowl into the basket. These baskets are easily available if you have a baking store near you, or eBay, Amazon, anywhere you can get these baskets, right? So same thing. Push it out flat. It's better if you take your palms and go like this, right? Then you want to make sure it's not stuck to the counter. This is another vital tool you need. You need a flat one for working on the bench, and you need a round one like this for getting it out of the mixing bowl, right? Same thing, just pull it out and fold it in. Pull it out, fold it in. Also, what you're doing is you're stretching the gluten, plus you're trapping air inside the ball, which is what you want. You'll see a thing about how do you know if your gluten is done. You do the window pane test. You can stretch your dough out. Well, it's just starting to tear there, but you can stretch the dough out until you can see through it. If this was white dough, it's called the window pane test. You can stretch it out until it's so thin you can see through it, but still it won't tear. Then you know you've developed good gluten. All right, so once I get it to this point, you do the same thing. Put it in a ball, and then cupping your hands underneath it as you press down. You don't want to add a lot of flour. I'm pushing that together, so I'm closing the bottom of the ball. And then push down and turn. That's making the skin pull tight. Let go and you see it turns back by itself. That's what you want to see. Then sometimes you have to just pinch this closed. A little flour on there. More flour on this side. See, I'm not using really a lot of flour. And just push it out. So it looks like a big Idaho potato. Like that, right? Yeah, just pick that up, put it in the proofing basket. A little more flour on top. Shower cap. And depending on the dough, every time you mix the dough, it's going to be a little different. It also depends on the temperature of the room, the humidity of the room, but somewhere around, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 hours, the bread's probably going to triple in size, right? This is another thing that just takes practice. You've got to learn your starter and the dough you're making and know when to put it in the oven. If you wait too long, it'll keep getting bigger. But if you wait too long, it's called overproofing. You get to a point where it's going to get this big and then it's going to start going like this. It's going to get so much air in it that it's very fragile. It's called overproofing. And then your loaf will condense and it will be like a brick. And you don't want that. You want it to have nice air bubbles inside, which is what we call the crumb. When you cut a loaf of bread and you see the air bubbles in the pockets inside, that's called the crumb. And another thing you're going to need is you're going to need what's called a lame. This is called a L-A-M-E, lame. This is a tool that's got a razor blade in it. After I take this out of the basket and I get ready to bake it, you need to slice this down the middle. You make a slice down the middle, and you can even do decorative stuff and make slices like this, and you can make it look like a piece of wheat. You can make it look like a tree branch, but you've got to cut the bread to let out the moisture when it starts cooking. So if you let it overproof and then you cut it, it's just going to go just like you deflated a balloon. So it's experience to know when your bread is right, when it's ready to go in the oven, and when it's proofed. Another way to tell is you push your finger in and it should come right back out. Then you know your proofing is close. But this is all stuff you just need to learn by trial and error, and you need to learn by reading on the internet, right? Okay, so I'm going to get the other two into the basket so that I can wait a few hours before I bake them. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments and I'll answer them. And after I bake these, I'll take a picture and show you what they look like, okay? Thanks for tuning in to The Village Loafer. We'll see you the next time we're in the bakery. Bye-bye.